Okay, let's get started. So where we're going to start today is talking about two different regional service providers. The first is a smaller provider. Maybe they have 50 or 30,000 subscribers. They're serving a couple of markets, maybe across a state. And they have a lean team. They have a small customer service team. They have a couple IT guys, a couple guys on provisioning side. And then, of course, their HR person, finance person, all of that. And what their system looks like today is a patchwork of a legacy billing system, maybe, some vendor-provided provisioning software, a CRM that's being half used, and a lot of steps that are being done manually, where you have team members doing copy and pasting between systems. They have all these different windows open. When an order comes in, that gets fulfilled fully manually. And they have spreadsheets tracking things like order status. Now, the second is a larger regional operator. Think maybe 500,000 or a couple million subscribers. They've made investments in the tech stack, so they have maybe a modernized billing system, some sort of self-serve portal for enabling ordering, self-serve account actions, and they run a proper call center. But behind the scenes, they still have parts of their day one operations that are being held together manually. And so, for example, if an order fails, maybe it creates a fallout, and then they have to work on resolving those issues manually. They may have other issues where CSRs to provision certain types of orders still need to swivel chair and open up different applications. And so all of this is really just adding in manual work behind the scenes. So what do they have in common? Well, obviously it's not their subscriber count or their team sizes, but it's the patchwork way that they're operating their business. And they've been doing it, let's say, for like the past 15 years, just at different scales. So why is this the case for these two hypothetical businesses and many of the different operators that we speak to today? Well, the main piece that we would say is it comes down to transformation. And so whenever you're looking at changing your operations, you start talking about transformation projects. And when you start talking about transformation projects, that doesn't always end in a productive conversation. For the larger operator, they may have tried transformation projects before and they're a bit soured on the whole concept. For smaller ones, it may just be something that they didn't want to get into because of the amount of time that's required. And so really what's held them back in the past has been modernizing their systems and their processes has taken a lot of time and effort. And there still is effort required today, but the barrier to entry is a lot lower with the tools that we have available to us. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to be talking about how you can take unoptimized, unautomated processes, particularly around day one operations, and how to turn them into strategic advantages. Advantages that will help you retain and gain more customers, to lower your OpEx, and to get a competitive edge over other providers in your area. And I would say that these are concrete advantages. We've talked to many providers, and a lot of them are still operating their business like I just described, very manually and labor intensive. And so if you can get on top of this, you can really create an advantage for yourself. But before I go on, who am I? I'm Zane Frantzen. I'm VP of Platform and Operations at SimplyAsk. What we do is we work with telecom operators, both large and small, on how to adopt AI and automation and how to streamline their operations, both from a process point of view, but also from a technology point of view. Okay, so today's agenda, we're going to start looking at these day one challenges. That is our focus, as mentioned in our overall session agenda. We're going to be focusing in on day one. So we'll look at some common challenges there. We're going to look at what industry best operating models look like for how to resolve these challenges and what they actually look like in action. So when I typically talk about the day one journey, I like to group it into these categories. And there's lots of tasks, under the hood for each of these sections here. But the three general categories or stages we see is order capture. An order comes in, maybe someone calls in, maybe someone goes on your website if you have self-serve ordering. And after it's captured, then of course it needs to be fulfilled. So once you take the order, you got to send it to your different systems so service gets activated. And In some percentage of cases, things go wrong during that process, and so you get into fallout or error triage, and sometimes even customer callbacks, because maybe you need to get some more information from the customer before you can fully complete the order. Now, when we talk to organizations, sometimes they have automation implemented broadly, but typically it's not as far as you can take it in all of these stages. So maybe they have automated self-serve customer ordering where they can go on the website, they can place an order. When they place the order, it's going to go ahead and fulfill it, do all the different validations it needs to do, and actually activate the service. But maybe for fallout triage, when an error occurs, now it's fully on their manual team to go ahead and resolve the issue and to proceed forward with that order. So, and then other organizations we talk to, there's pretty much manual steps all the way along the process. And really what that's driving is going to be degraded customer experience, which of course hurts retention and customer acquisition. That also drives more limited reporting and insights into what's happening in each of these processes and across the whole journey. And then also an increased cost to serve, because when you're doing everything manually, then it's obviously labor intensive to deliver your service. So let's go a little bit deeper into each of these, looking at the problem and some of the kind of industry best solutions we see being deployed today. So when we're talking about order capture, oftentimes we find organizations are still doing a lot of this manually. Maybe it's as a secondary channel, maybe it is the primary channel for how people start using your service. And so if it's being done manually, what that means is that people are calling in, or maybe they're filling in a form and then that gets sent to your team. But overall, what it's driving is significant call volume, which is obviously cost. And what happens, or why this occurs, is that, as I mentioned, maybe you have no self-serve ordering, or the user experience is not kind of end-to-end or to the quality that customers would be expecting. Maybe you can't even enable self-serve ordering because you don't yet have a fully digitized offering catalog. Or maybe there's just manual steps within your operational processes today that mandate that you do various manual checks maybe during the ordering process. So these are some of the drivers behind the problem that we see here around ordering, or I should say order capture. Now, the solution to all of this is looking at how you can build a modern self-serve CPQ that can eliminate those inbound calls, and also build out an experience that is omni-channel, so that your CSRs and your end customers are using the same ordering flow. So that enables different things like transferring cart to CSR, where a customer may start an order, they still may want to call in, but then the CSR can pick up and continue the order from there in order to reduce the amount of time it takes per customer call transaction you deal with. There's other things here too. So the example we have here is from a wireline provider that we work with, but at the end of the day, self-serve ordering is pretty similar across the board, wireline and wireless. As you have different offers, you want to customize your offers, maybe add some devices or equipment and different add-ons. And the idea is that a customer would then go to your website, they'd select what they want, click order, and all the offerings would come from your offering catalog behind the scene. You can use AI to help answer questions or proactively upsell customers based on trends or things that you might know about them already if they're an existing customer. And then other things, of course, when you get ready to submit your order, your cart, then that would be automatically fulfilled. And the key idea and how this is helping is, I think pretty obvious, is that you're significantly reducing your inbound call volume because a customer can order everything they need themselves. Now, the next stage is after you've captured the order, they've clicked submit, or maybe your CSR has captured all of the information that they need from a customer. Now we're talking about some of the challenges we see in the actual order fulfillment. And so there's two parts to this. One part is that the actual order fulfillment is slow and maybe manual. Maybe you have to do some checks manually. Maybe you need to actually go ahead and enter data into a few different systems in order to activate the order. But the other piece is also it might be hard to change. So we often find that if you have some sort of order automation, it might be built in such a way where if you want to bring a new offering to the market, then you need to do some development with your IT team to actually configure that ordering flow. And so that's really what often drives some of these problems, is that you may have unintegrated systems that today require a CSR to open up different windows and to complete the order after a customer submits it. You may have other things like credit check validations that require manual efforts because, again, it's not well integrated. And as I mentioned there, new offers might trigger actual changes in any automation you might have for configuring. Now, in terms of solution, what we often look at here is around building an automated workflow to do that. And the idea is that you can use different tools that give you like a no-code layer where you can go ahead and kind of drag and drop and build out the different steps you want and to connect into all of the existing systems you have. And so that might be through API, connecting that way, might be connecting to a database. If you want to stick on some Excel spreadsheets, you can connect into that and use those as well for tracking. But the idea is that you can go through your various different steps. This is obviously a heavily simplified example, but doing different things like validating order data, you can do risk analysis, you can get data from your CRM and use that. You can do credit checks, send to your billing, send to your provisioning, all of that that's needed, where instead of having a human swivel chairing between different applications, you can have them or have the system go ahead and automate the fulfillment of it. Now, the next piece, and I think one of the more interesting pieces around optimizing the day one experience is around order fallouts. And so this is what to do when things go wrong. And so, as I mentioned, when we talk to both large and small organizations, oftentimes it's just cutting a manual ticket that then a team member has to go in and resolve. And so what often drives this is that maybe it's open-ended, again, kind of coming back to the order fulfillment issues where systems are not perfectly integrated. So that may just require naturally a human to go ahead and fulfill, or I should say resolve the error. And then the other piece as well is that sometimes you need to chase customers down to get more information. Now, there are a couple pieces to this solution. The first one here is using AI-driven fallout triage. And so how this can work is that if you have a kind of a knowledge base, let's say, of past cases that you resolved, you can actually have AI start looking at the trends between what you've done before to resolve issues, and then it can start learning in order to automatically resolve these issues when they come up again. So kind of think of it as like a self-healing mechanism in the ordering flow. Now, there also are cases which will still need to be escalated to human, and so you can have an order fallout ticket created and assigned to the right person to actually go ahead and resolve it, maybe on your IT team or maybe just the CSR, depending on the nature of the issue. And it's improved over what traditional order fallouts might look like, where it's just like a log error, but rather it can be enriched with more information about the current customer account, maybe their history, whatever information that's relevant to the type of error that's come up, so that when a human starts to look at it, they're also starting from a point of progress instead of from nothing as they might be today. And then once it's all resolved, then continue processing so that you can continue gaining the value from the rest of the automation instead of having the process be turned into a manual order completion at that point. And the big picture here is really, as I mentioned, handling these common errors automatically based on your past resolved cases, and then escalating as needed with context. Now, the other piece to this puzzle is that sometimes orders will fall out because you need to reach out to a customer. And this actually extends past just fallout resolution because there's other reasons you might want to connect with the customer. And there's two common solutions we see to optimize this whole general flow. One is around scheduled customer callbacks. And so the idea there is that if you want to get a hold of a customer, oftentimes today you might just be calling them over and over and over again. And connect rates generally for those types of activities are quite low. We see with some providers it's only 20%, 10% connect rate if you try to reach out to someone. And so you have to make 3, 4, or 5 calls in order to get a hold of them to get the information you need. The idea with this is that you can have the customer pick a time to get a call back from you. And what you're doing from a process point of view is you're changing from a call out model to almost a call in model. And that greatly increases connection rate and reduces the cost that's required to reach out to these people. The other one that we're also seeing deployed today is around AI-driven information collection, where you can have an AI agent reach out to customers over SMS, over email, and they can go ahead and have kind of a two-way conversation, collecting information that's needed. And for example, if it's used in that fallout automation workflow we just talked about, then it could fully resolve issues, even if it does require some customer communication. So the idea here is really to increase connect rate and reduce the cost and the effort required around customer outreach, while still keeping a human in the loop where it makes sense to keep up your service quality. Now, beyond day one, there's lots of other areas of opportunity that we see when we talk to service providers. So one common area is around field service management, maybe infrastructure building or network issue resolution, where that might be managed today on Excel. You might have some basic scheduling software that you kind of piece together. But there are many ways to optimize that around intelligently routing people and assigning tasks. There's other things too, billing inquiries and adjustments. So this is often a top 3 type of inquiry that comes into a call center post day one. And so automating those are definitely a big thing. And so using AI agents to provide automated customer support or to even proactively provide information to customers that you could foresee they might be asking you about based on trends. These are also use cases that we often see on the billing side. Plans and changes, cancellations. Again, this is all around enabling self-service in terms of not just order capture, but how to enable customers to perform actions on their accounts by themselves. And then there's other internal use cases like auditing contracts and financial documents. And so we actually were working with the provider on this, and they had business contracts that updated every 12 months in terms of the rate, and they had to apply the rate manually, but they only had manpower to audit the contracts every 18 months. And so that causes a 6-month revenue slip, which then is money that you could have been recognizing. So there are lots of different use cases on the auditing side where you can really leverage AI to go through these documents and help you be more efficient. And the last piece here, internal knowledge management. This is really about taking the information you might have in different documents, you might have it in wiki portals and other places, and to enable your customers to get the answers they need on whatever information you're allowing to be exposed, but then also allowing your internal team members to share information and to more readily access it through like an AI co-pilot type experience. Now, for all these solutions, or I should say all of the day one solutions that we were just talking about, these are things that we've deployed with our telecom operations platform. And the idea is that we have these like template solutions that you can deploy and then tweak as you need to connect up to your existing systems. So you can deploy AI agents for support. You can also build out all those automated workflows we just looked at there with these drag and drop no-code editors. You can have service ticket management. You can have fallout issue resolution. You can have CPQ and self-serve ordering. But the idea is that it kind of sits on top of whatever billing systems you're using, connects into that, payment systems, all of that, and enables you to kind of automate this end-to-end day one life cycle as well as beyond. So what we're going to look at here is just in general what these types of solutions look like, all those day one ones, and I think field operations as well. And just to get a sense about what the end user experience is and how all these systems are managed, and importantly, how you do this safely so that when you're deploying AI, it's not doing its own thing. So let me switch over to a quick demo here. Great. And I will try to find my mouse. I'll just open up. Great. We'll just click play here. So where we're starting here is with the CPQ, self-serve ordering. And so as you'd expect, you would have different offerings. You'd select it. This is internet, but here, of course, you could select different devices and different add-ons that you want for mobile. In our case here, we could bundle it with different solutions. And the idea is just pretty standard. Select your offers. You can go ahead and check out and then get a summary of all your information. And if you already have self-serve ordering enabled, then this shouldn't be anything new. But the idea here is that you can have an experience where you collect whatever information you need to fulfill the order, and it will fill that all in. And then I think it should jump down here to just the final confirmation. So lots of fields, maybe a password, maybe billing preference, and then a summary of your order, of course, terms of service, and then you can place your order. Now, what happens after you place your order, jumping into the process automation side, is around order fulfillment. So here we can see that when we click place order, we have this historical process that's executed. We can see all the little steps that have happened here. And we've got different steps like create customer. We have different things like submit order to the any ordering system you might have. We also have fulfillment, so then we're connecting to different provisioning systems. And then it continues, so on and so forth, sending an update to the customer and all of that. And then here we'll have some information that's been provided in these logs around all the information that's collected about the shopping cart and about the information that was submitted here. Now, the idea with the system is that you can fully monitor everything that's gone on. So we saw kind of the flow that it took. We can also see what's happened at each of the steps, and that's really just for diagnosing if anything goes wrong. Now, in terms of actually building it out, you can use the no-code editor here where you can have different inputs, and then you can have different steps for like integration, connecting different systems, for sending emails or text messages, for using AI within your workflows, and all that just gets dragged into your process as needed. And so we can see that these are actually all the steps that were in the other view of what executed, but really what we're talking about here is as a system admin, how you edit it. And so we wanted to edit a step, we just go ahead and configure it. But as I mentioned, we often start with kind of a pre-built template, and then you just tweak a few things, connect it up to your systems, and then you're good to go. So it's not a huge lift really to build this out. Now, switching gears here to booking a callback, you might have a form like this where you want to go ahead and get a hold of a customer instead of trying to call out to reach them. And so you might provide your phone number, some information, and you'll submit the form. And so once that's submitted, that's going to, again, trigger a workflow. And in our case, this workflow created a manual task or a service ticket, which this would be assigned to a CSR to work on. It'd be assigned automatically. In this case here, it was assigned to me. And there's other fields here, of course, where you can have your due date of what time you're supposed to call them by, all the different information that you want. And then maybe the CSR says, customer cannot be reached. They can add some activities. If they wanted, they could mark it as resolved. So that's kind of like a task management point of view. Now, looking at self-serve customer support, so maybe on your website you have a chat widget like this, and people want to get some more information. So they can provide information from its knowledge base of general information, but also it can access account information. So it's doing actions on behalf of the customer. And so then it can authenticate the customer, ask some questions for that, and then go and support them however they need support. And to set that all up, that's just done in this no-code editor here where you just kind of describe in English what are the objectives, the things you want it to do, and how should it do it. So what are the actions? So we've got like an objective here to answer questions, and how it's going to do that, it's going to search a knowledge base of documentation, and you just all set it up here. And in terms of accessing customer account info, this may be a workflow like the ones we saw in the earlier editor, and here it can collect some inputs that are needed to help that work. But the idea is that you kind of just give it what are the things you want it to do, what are the actions, and it does that every single time, and it pushes conversations in that direction. Other things you can set up are like context or personality you want to give the AI, you just describe it. And other things like if you want to enable multilingual support, maybe you want to enable Spanish automatically, just toggle that on, and now you have support in any language you'd like. In terms of the knowledge base, this can be used in workflows to help it make decisions, or also in the AI. And so it could be coming from a website, crawling your website, getting information so it can provide it from there. Maybe you're uploading thousands of files, you can do that as well. But really anything can be a knowledge base, and the AI, both from a support point of view and from a process point of view, can use it. The other thing as well is that there's auditing throughout the platform. So if you want to see who was chatting with your AI, from where, what the conversation was, you can also transfer these conversations to human. Then that would also show up here. And so you can get kind of an end-to-end picture of the experience. And I think there's one last piece here more on the field management side. Actually, I shouldn't say field management because we see customers use this for things like managing scheduled callback queues, managing field service. But the idea is that when you have a shift that you want to schedule tasks into, you can use this to manage different people and match people with tasks automatically and have the system do that all for you. So you can create shifts of tasks. So these are all like different solutions spanning kind of the day one process that we see often implemented. And as I mentioned, these are generally templatized solutions that just require a little bit of tweaking to turn on, but can really enhance both the customer experience and reduce the effort that it takes to serve your different customers, both residential and business. So what I'd like to wrap up here is that even the largest carriers, I say they're doing most of this. They're definitely not doing all of this. And I think one of the main reasons for that is, of course, AI and automation is moving so quickly and that they're looking to adopt things, but they move slower. And so your advantage as regional carriers is that you're more agile and you can try out new things faster. And this can allow you to really create, as I mentioned at the start, a strategic advantage that works in your favor and improves your offerings. And then that last thing to note there is that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have a library of hundreds of telecom use cases that we've proven over the past 5 years or so of running our platform that it's just a matter of turning on, tweaking a little bit, and you get started. So that concludes with what I want to talk about here today. But if you want to chat more, we can actually have some questions here. Otherwise, we can chat at the end or at our booth later on. So thank you, everyone. Okay, any questions? Yeah, I think we got the... Actually, I think I can just give a single microphone. Who?
Sorry.
Yes?
You talk a lot about process automation,
Yep.
which is great, but what about revenue generation? What use cases does your platform support?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a few areas to that. One on the revenue generation side is streamlining the customer buying experience. So when we're looking at the self-serve ordering, that's something that makes it easier to buy, so that can help increase revenue. When we're talking about business customers, we often see organizations build out flows for reaching out to local businesses and try to engage and generate leads that then can be fed over to your marketing teams. The other thing that we see is also around like lead categorization and scoring and prioritization, so that when a lead gets to your salespeople, then it can go ahead and have a background or a strategy about how to sell to this customer, what they might be interested in. And there's lots of stuff, I guess, around that. But I'd say it's really looking at what processes you have today and how you can accelerate it, or how you can improve the buying experience so that it can help drive more sales. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. And as I mentioned, if you want to chat, just let me know. And we'll also be over in the exhibiting area. Thank you.
Thank you.